Thanks for that, Jason. Your favorite governor is in the news yet again. DeSantis' marijuana opposition campaign in Florida raises just $10,000 as Pro-Legalization Committee rakes in tens of millions. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Republican, recently launched Political Action Committee opposing a marijuana legalization ballot initiative and has so far raised only $10,000, just 1/6,000th of the amount of money that's poured into the effort to pass the cannabis measure. As of last week, the DeSantis Florida Freedom Fund has only raised $10,000 in contributions, all coming from one former Republican congressman representing Pennsylvania. Campaign finance records from the Division of Elections records show. By contrast, the Smart and Safe Florida campaign behind the marijuana initiative has raised over $60 million. Of course, the PAC founded by the governor only launched in May, whereas the cannabis campaign has been active since late 2022. Even so, the early numbers seem to signal a lack of enthusiasm among prospective donors about supporting the effort to derail marijuana legalization, as well as an abortion rights proposal that the DeSantis committee is also seeking to defeat. Former U.S. Representative Keith Rothfuss, a Republican from Pennsylvania, the DeSantis committee's sole donor, voted against numerous amendments in Congress to shield state marijuana laws from federal interference. He also opposed measures on cannabis banking and to allow Department of Veterans Affairs doctors to recommend medical marijuana. The campaign finance data was first reported by Florida Politics on Saturday. DeSantis has been railing against the marijuana measure for months, most recently arguing that it would protect the right to use cannabis more strongly than the First Amendment protects free speech or the Second Amendment protects gun rights, and again claiming that the reform has been a failed experiment in such states as Colorado. The governor said last week that the proposal would allow people to do marijuana wherever you want. Just smoke it, take it, and it would turn Florida into San Francisco or Chicago or some of these places. He then reprised one of his chief complaints about the potential impact of legalization, smelling cannabis. He said, "We've got to keep our streets clean. We cannot have every town smelling like marijuana. We cannot have every hotel smelling. Theme parks." And adding that voters don't really understand the specifics of the legislation proposal and that ballot initiatives are generally, quote, so bogus. DeSantis acknowledged that the state Supreme Court has a role in reviewing ballot language for constitutionality and that majority of justices determined that the marijuana measure met the legal standard. But while he previously correctly predicted the court would approve the initiative following a challenge from the state attorney General Ashley Moody, also a Republican, he now says the two dissenting justices were correct in trying to block voters from deciding on the measure. Well, they don't want voters deciding on things. DeSantis also claimed last month that if voters approve the marijuana legalization initiative, people, quote, will be able to bring 20 joints to an elementary school, unquote. And he again complained about the prevalent odor of cannabis that says would result from the reform. Legalization, quote, has not worked in any single place, the governor said. He challenged a recent ad from the campaign that promoted regulating cannabis as an alternative to the status quo of people using untested cannabis from illicit sellers. Meanwhile, according to a Fox News poll released last month, 2 in 3 Florida voters support the cannabis initiative, with the issue proving more popular than the governor himself. The survey showed majority support for legalization across the political spectrum, too. Despite his opposition to the marijuana legalization, DeSantis recently vetoed a bill to ban the sale of intoxicating hemp-derived cannabinoids in his state. The action came amid reporting that the governor planned to block the hemp prohibition legalization in hopes that the industry would return the favor by financially assisting in his effort to defeat the marijuana initiative. The governor has consistently argued that the state shouldn't go beyond the existing medical cannabis program and that broader reform would negatively impact the quality of life for Floridians. The Florida Republican Party also formally came out against Amendment 3 last month. Smart and Safe Florida separately announced in March that it was working to form a coalition of veterans to build voter support for the reform, and the campaign has since formally launched that initiative. Here's what the Smart and Safe Florida Marijuana Legalization Initiative would accomplish. Adults 21 and older could purchase and possess up to 3 ounces of cannabis for personal use. The cap for marijuana concentrates would be 5 grams. Medical cannabis dispensaries could acquire, cultivate, process, manufacture, sell, and distribute marijuana products and marijuana accessories to adults for personal use. Legislature would be authorized but not required to approve additional entities that are not currently licensed cannabis dispensaries. The initiative specifies that nothing in the proposal prevents the legislature from enacting laws that are consistent with this amendment. The amendment further clarifies that nothing about the proposal changes federal law, which seems to be an effort to avoid past legal challenges about misleading ballot language. There are no provisions for home cultivation, expungement of prior records, or social equity. The measure would take effect 6 months following approval from voters. Economic analysis from the Florida legislature and DeSantis' office estimate that marijuana legalization initiative would generate between $195 million and $431 million in new sales tax revenue annually if voters enact it. Those figures could increase considerably if lawmakers opted to impose an additional excise tax on cannabis transactions that's similar to the ones in place in other legalized states. Unlike the governor, U.S. Representative Brian Mast, a Republican from Florida, said in April that he does believe Florida voters will approve the legalization initiative. I'm Todd Dankin with High at 9 News. And what do you guys think about America's least favorite governor trying to block the will of the people again?
He just needs to sit down and smoke with Jason Beck, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We would have an amazing conversation together. Yes, I mean,
Really does.
I mean, he's just trying to gaslight people right now. He wants to pander to his base to try to raise some money, and I know a lot of these people are probably going to give him some. They are going to give him some money. He probably just hasn't got it yet. But I could name probably like 5 or 6 families that I know that are going to give him some money in regards to this. But that's because they're prohibitionists and they have lost children from drugs and whatnot, and they do believe in their heart of hearts that cannabis is a gateway drug, and that a lot of it is due to lack of education around this subject. But nonetheless,
it's a gateway to happiness.
I mean, I just think it's a gateway to the refrigerator. You know what I mean? Todd. But DeSanctimonious, I mean, I'm not too worried about this. I will say this. I do differ with my good buddy, Congressman Brian Mast. I don't think that this is going to pass in Florida. I think it's going to come very close. I think they may even hit 59%, but I don't think they're going to get over that 60% threshold in this election. I think there's far too much.
I think it's going to pass, and DeSantis is going to veto it. That's what I think.
DeSantis is not going to veto it if it passes by 60%. There's zero chance of that.
He doesn't like the will of the people.
He loves the will of the people. What are you talking about?
Oh, come on.
He's the most will of the people governor that we have in place right now.
Oh my God.
He's not Kristi Noem.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Mm-hmm. Oh dear.
Oh dear.
we know things I say stress you out, Todd. It's going to be okay though.
When are you moving to Florida, Jason Beck?
It's just confusing. It's just your opinion is just confusing.
Can we go over the tax numbers that they gave?
Yeah. I want to go over the tax numbers. I want
$400 million.
I want to intro you.
Money.
I want to intro you to go over the tax numbers, but allow me to just sort of set the stage with a Kubrick comment that's like a moosh-boosh to what Saman has to say around the taxes. So one of the problems in trying to create bipartisan and broad-based support for cannabis programs has been this notion that there's always going to be this massive tax windfall and that it's going to support every important social program and that orphans with cleft palates are all going to have a surgery tomorrow because the taxes are going to pay for every problem that society has ever seen. And then they use these massive tax projections as like, oh, so you have something against Florida making another $150 million to $412 million annually? I guess you don't like potholes being filled, and apparently you don't like fire safety either. The problem with that is that while it can, in the short term, get a broader coalition to support cannabis, in the long term, it's those models that step on the necks of cannabis entrepreneurs and create an unsustainable business and ultimately fuel the trap. And so it's challenging for me when I see red, blue, purple, whatever, talking about these tax numbers, because we know that those tax numbers that are being baked in based on what didn't work in other markets is often the recipe for a non-sustainable industry. But I'm gonna lob this up to Saman.
Potholes. Like, we see these funds going to the general fund. The general fund is, guess what? Politicians and police. So we're using the same funds that are supposed to be building parks, fixing our roads, coming back to us, maybe paying the police to protect us. I don't know how many of you have had your facilities broken into and the police wouldn't come. Oakland PD, I'm looking at you. But, we're not getting protection for all these egregious amounts of taxes that we're paying. So, Yarrow, I don't think you could have said any better unless you still had the dreadlocks.
Wow.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Wow.
Saman, I'm open to what you have to say, since I think that the two of us here are very aligned in our perspective.
Well, yeah. As I get to the Sting and Roger of this nice, amazing joint I had. Look, I mean, the tax, first and foremost, Florida is a huge market. So we should look at the correlation of like a state like California and the tax dollars that's been generated here from cannabis sales, and compare that to what their, I think conservative kind of estimate is there. But I think that's part of the story. It's like, oh, it's not that much money. It's not like enough money to just push this through. And I think that's kind of the major underlying thesis, is that, hey, this isn't like a boon to the economy as everyone thinks it's going to be. It's just going to create more crazy shit happening in Florida that's going to be on the news because everyone's going to be too high on cannabis, which we all know is totally false, because they're high on bath salts in Florida, as we know. So, I mean, I think it's just one of these, like, it's just disingenuous. And, I don't believe anything that comes out of Ron DeSantis's mouth, really. Agreed. But I'll say that, like, there's this struggle to, like, look like you're gonna do right by, like, the people or the society or the liberty of those people in your society that you're trying to govern. And I think that's kind of more of the story here. And unfortunately, cannabis is this carrot, and it's just battered around when literally it could solve so many other issues for our country and for other countries around the globe. And I think that us standing in front of it, people holding the front of that line and not letting it really flourish is really the issue. So hopefully people get their head out of their ass.
I agree with you completely, 110%. We also need to think about, with Florida, who lives in Florida, who moves to Florida? Old people.
People that want to save money. People that don't want to be overtaxed.
Snowbirds are called snowbirds for a reason. They're old, they retired. We've got a bunch of boomers moving to a state where the governor is not.
You have a bunch of people that are just moving there just to get away from wokeness.
I might go there. I want to play some Brickles, so we'll see. But,
fair enough.
Split time.
I love Florida. I'm from Florida.
See what I'm saying?
I like Florida.
I grew up in Florida.
I like Florida.
I love Florida too. My family's in Ponte Vedra. I totally am not shitting on Florida. But
too many red hats.
Policy, we need to understand who's voting for it there, and who's putting money in DeSantis' pockets, because it's the rich old people that are retiring there.
I mean, in all fairness, those rich old people
22 million people
nice
live
places.
there. 140 million people visit there a year. I think they're going to pass recreational marijuana, quite honestly.
I don't think they're due, because there's a big divide within the cannabis community overall over this bill, because a lot of people see this as a big power grab by companies like Trulieve and others out there.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's no home grow, that's a big dividing issue. So I'm not sure if this is going to pass. I think it's going to come close. I think it'll get over 50%, but I don't think it's going to hit 60.
I think the senior citizens are going to bring it home, quite honestly.
They're
going to outnumber the red hats.
That's never going to happen in Florida. But nonetheless, we're going to roll right into a commercial, and we're going to be right back.
The Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The control tower from Highly Educated.
All right, stop whatever you're doing. Make sure that you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you've not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.highat9news.com.
I'm Jason Beck, and this is Smokey Vanilla. And if you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to get a stretch and smoke with Smokey Vanilla.
Hi, I'm Smokey Vanilla. I have my bachelor's degree in kinesiology, and I'm a sports massage therapist and stretch coach. I focus mostly on individuals that are in sport with chronic pain or injury. I love to intuitively create and customize a session based on the individual that I'm working with. We'll go over a few postural assessments, work together to create a wellness journey based on the health history, past injuries, or anything still affecting you today. And we'll get you back on your feet right away with less pain.
We're about to stretch, and then we're gonna smoke, because we're gonna get on our stretch and smoke. If you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to come on down and get a stretch and smoke with none other than Smokey Vanilla.
All right, coming up next, that's right, we have Mr. Yaro Kubrin. He does cannabis, he does real estate, he sips wine, and when he gets to sip wine, then he dreams of visions of cannabis companies having enough money to do real estate deals. That's right, coming up next is none other than Mr. Yaro Kubrin.
It's weirder and weirder.
Wow.
It's the worst intro. It's okay. I've become desensitized to it. Another way of saying it is I've developed a tolerance for the intro.
Is that it? It's not your tolerance to Pinot, is it?
I have no tolerance to Pinot and just full passion for a good glass. All right. So anyway, let's get to it. Tuesday, July 2nd. This is Yaro Kubrin. Good morning, High at 9 News viewers. My article today is about Ohio. All right. So this is from the Canton Rep. So an Ohio newspaper. Up in smoke, North Canton votes against allowing marijuana businesses in community. North Canton, marijuana dispensaries aren't welcome in the Dogwood City. City Council voted 4-3 on Monday to ban them from the community. Mayor Stephen Wilder is expected to sign the legislation, which takes effect in 30 days. North Canton joins at least 61 other Ohio municipalities that have approved moratoriums prohibiting adult use cannabis businesses as of June 13th, according to the Ohio State University Moritz College of Law. The law school has been tracking the issue statewide as communities decide whether to permit such businesses after Ohio voters approved allowing recreational marijuana last fall. The 4 council members who voted to ban marijuana dispensaries were Council President Matthew whatever, Melissa whatever, Jamie whatever, and Stefan whatever. 3 of them voted against the ban. And I say whatever because literally whatever. That's not going to be the vote that defines their career, but it might be the beginning of the downfall. Asked why people who need cannabis for medicinal purposes have to leave the city to buy it, they said, quote, I think we're making a big mistake. Now, Mathanany said the city would allow marijuana dispensaries, but also require that they pay licensing fees and follow zoning and signage rules. And one of the other city council members said that, there was this disagreement. They had taken issue with the city regulating businesses, but that he himself was suggesting regulations. One of the other council members argued that the vote by the city's voters last November was very split on approving recreational marijuana. She thought it was far better the city take a pause before agreeing to allow marijuana dispensaries. One of the other city council members said the city years ago banned tattoo parlors. And she knows a woman who had to move her tattoo business to Plains Township, where she said it is thriving. She said bans against those types of businesses, such as marijuana dispensaries, don't really help boost the city's economy. Oh my God, this lady is definitely a Mensa member. Being dry has not served us well. Not allowing microblading of eyebrows has not served as well, she said. Okay, yeah, I'm seeing the connection between microblading and cannabis. One of the other city members said he was not supportive of allowing dispensaries as long as the state legislature that he was delayed passing legislation deciding on how much cities would tax dispensaries. So he needed that money piece first. And finally, one of them said they did not want to allow the sale of a drug in North Canton that was unregulated, especially in terms of THC content. So reason why I picked this article is, first of all, Ohio was very good to us during the rollout of their medical dispensaries. I'm super bullish on Ohio as it rolls out adult use. And one of my never-ending themes on this show is examining the rollout of failed policies where we already have a lot of data from other states or markets to see the limitations of those policies. So I picked this today because yet again, we've got a state that's allowed for adult use. And now with this notion of local control, these small areas are going to be creating adult use retail deserts, very similar to California. And so I'm very curious to find out what my other pundits and participants think about this article today.
So Oklahoma just basically did what California did with giving them local control, where municipalities can say that we don't want to have any cannabis businesses operate inside our municipalities. Am I correct on that?
Ohio, correct.
Yeah. I mean, that to me, I think that's a big mistake. That's where California messed up a lot. I mean, the League of Cities is basically just controlling California, and a lot of these municipalities keeping it basically a dry state in most cities and municipalities, when we could have a very, very robust cannabis economy out here. And I think Ohio, I understand that they want to tiptoe into this or whatnot, but I just don't think that this is the way to go. Just set up some boundaries as far as where you want these to be located away from sensitive uses, and just let people apply for licenses.
I mean, this is most states that are doing that. Colorado still does it. I mean, there's still dry pockets in Colorado, who was the first to legalize adult use. So I think that, you see
just because it's bad policy doesn't mean they should keep repeating it.
I completely agree with that, but I don't think that it's completely rare either. And I don't think it was just California's mistake. So let's go ahead and shit on everybody while we're shitting on states and bad policy.
Yeah, you're right.
Fair.
It's
okay.
a rollout. I mean, you even see the municipalities that are approving it still not rolling out how they're going to regulate. They're still not figuring out what even their application processes are. We're just now seeing in LA County is just now coming up with their legislative framework as far as how their regulators are going to operate.
I mean, didn't Colorado just come out with social equity just like a couple months ago?
That was more than a couple months ago, but they also give a tremendous amount more in grant money to social equity applicants than California even dreamed about doing. So if Colorado can do that, right? I mean, there was not social equity there for a long time, and there also wasn't delivery in that sense, but now there is, and it's
the evolution.
We're flying the plane while it's being built. We've been doing that for years, and we're going to continue to do that.
Yeah, and I really just think it's an economic thing. I mean, as Jenny said, it's on the onus is on the municipality to create the ordinance to then create the pathway. If they don't care, then it's not a thing. So until they have an economic reason to do it, I think that we'll see just the slow rollout of all of these adult use cities that are coming online, allowing for commerce, allowing for sale, and all that stuff. So this is normal. This is very normal, but it's an economic issue. It's nothing else. It's not an existential issue. It's an economic issue.
Look, if it's legal in the state, it should be legal in the state.
Yeah,
right?
I agree with that. I agree with that.
I would argue it's not an economic issue, in so much as I think there's ample data to show that brick and mortar adult use dispensaries are a net positive economically to small regions or to any region. And I think that what we're seeing here is the vestiges, the policy residual of the stigma of cannabis, where we're giving up state or broader control in order to get buy-in from local municipalities. But in creating these retail deserts, whether we're talking about Long Island or talking about North Stanton in Ohio, we do have enough data to be able to look at market after market after market. To my colleague to the right here, as she talked about it, it's not just California, and we've seen it over and over and over and over again. So the challenge that I have is, at what point do policymakers recognize the consistent failures of this local control approach that allows for brick and mortar retail bans? And at what point do states go, you can have policy that is more permissive, but not less permissive than what we're allowing, versus the opposite, where they're allowing them to be more restrictive on a local level? Because I don't think we can show a state where that has actually functioned well from an economic perspective.
But Yara, let me like, you know, dig deeper. It's that the only way to get over that stigma is to create an economic situation that will shadow that. So that's why I say economic issue, because there is some, deeply rooted, opposition against cannabis, and it's from the landowners, it's from, deep-seated politics in those municipalities that come from those citizens, and the only way around that is to create an overwhelmingly positive economic situation that can shut those voices out and bring in the commerce of those retailers. But let's say that hopefully the retail desert situation becomes a non-issue because of direct-to-consumer sales, and what that looks like when you're able to bring or get the product to those people in those rural areas or those quote-unquote retail deserts. How does that affect that? So again, I think it's an economic issue.
Appreciate you.
Interesting. I just think that these cities shouldn't be doing it. And to Vermont alternative point, he said that up in Vermont that they did this similar thing as well. That if a city did not create any kind of regulation, it was automatically assumed that they opted out of the program. And I feel like all cities should be forced to opt into the program, and then if they want to pass some legislation opting them out, then they would have to go through that. So then that way that would engage more of a public response in regards to their want for what they actually passed. Because I believe that is in every municipality that has passed some form of legalization as far as adult use, it is assumed by the voters that there would be cannabis stores in their neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, I advised Marin County City Council on their regulations, and they wanted to obviously kind of curb the black market. They wanted to generate tax revenue, and that was their main focus. And I kept telling them, you have to have brick and mortar. You can't just have this activity and have no way for someone to sell in your municipality. And they still didn't listen on that initially. So,
Crazy.
I mean, it wasn't great. I think it's just short-sighted. It's short-sighted on it's your city council that is deciding what you guys are going to be able to do and not to do in a municipality. And I don't know, like city council, I'm from the South. Those were always the good old boy systems. It was like wink, wink, nod, nod. We're going to get Ted in there because we're going to fix the pool system in our little community.
Well, Ted was a pool guy.
Well,
we got to save the kids. Who's going to protect the kids?
As a mother, I can just say this has never been about the kids, so let's stop throwing them little fuckers up there as our reasons.
I know that. I agree with you.
And on that,
I agree with you, but that's what they said.
Free policy. Free policy.
And on that, we're going to go to a commercial, and we're going to be right back.